Fredegund's forbidden affair, the shocking scandal of a queen and her young stepsons. A tale of betrayal, passion, and unthinkable secrets that shook a kingdom to its core. In a time where whispers meant death and love was a game played with a blade at your back, Fredegund's leap into forbidden desires was nothing short of explosive. The air within her cold stone castle was thick with tension, wrapping around its inhabitants like a suffocating fog. Eyes darted. Hearts raced. Every shadow seemed to carry her scandal. Fredegund wasn't just any queen, she was a tempest, a force of nature hidden beneath layers of royal poise. Her bright blue eyes could spark fires of both passion and dread, and people who loved to gossip claimed they saw storms brewing behind them. They would mutter in dark alleyways about the way she laughed too loud for a widow, too lively for someone who should be mourning. The night she first laid eyes on her young stepsons, things began to unravel. These boys, barely more than children, were the perfect mix of innocence and wildness. With messy hair that carried the scent of freedom, and eyes full of questions, they set her heart racing in ways she'd never expected. What was meant to be a duty became a maze of secrecy and thrill as she found herself drawn to their youthful energy. It was a delicate dance, a tightrope walk over a chasm of danger. As tensions brewed among nobles, their disapproval hung heavy in the air. Everyone knew something was off, and they whispered behind closed doors. Fredegund sensed it, the cool chills running down her spine as she caught fragments of their conversations. "Did you hear? The Queen's been seen with the boys." Eyes grew wide, hands clenched in shock. The whispers echoed louder, louder until they drowned out her thoughts. And there it was, the subtle push of urgency, the tightening of her chest as she wondered, how long until her secret was unveiled? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the sun dipped beneath the horizon, casting shadows that danced over the castle walls, Fredegund felt the weight of the night settling in. With each tick of the clock, her heart echoed the racing footsteps of fate, inching closer to a revelation that threatened to expose her deepest desires. The walls felt too close, too suffocating, and as she looked at the boys, an unspoken question hung in the air. What would happen if she took one more step into the unknown? Would passion devour her, or would it set her free? The answers loomed like dark clouds, getting heavier by the minute. Would she risk it all for a taste of forbidden love? The air hung thick around her like an electric storm, and Fredegund could feel the tightening knot of fear in her stomach. Every beat of her heart pounded against her ribcage as she turned to look at her stepsons, their youthful faces illuminated by the flickering candlelight. They were unaware of the storm brewing around them, lost in the bubbling excitement of innocent laughter and playful banter. But for Fredegund, this was no longer just a game. This was life and death. She stepped closer, her thoughts swirling. "What am I doing?" she whispered to herself, trembling as the gravity of the situation threatened to crush her. Could she embrace her feelings without destroying everything? In the distance, she heard the sound of clattering armor guards making their rounds. Each clang echoed through the silence like a warning bell. While each moment passed, the possible consequences of her desires crystallized in her mind. Would the nobles rise against her? Would her late husband's memory drown her in shame? The boys were a world of temptation. Their gleeful shouts drew her in like a moth to a flame. A wild laugh escaped her. It felt free, unfamiliar, but as swift as a shadow, doubt tainted her joy. What would the kingdom say? What would they think if they found out the queen dallied with her stepsons? Their disapproval would be a thunderous storm, raining down ruin upon her family's name. Suddenly, one of the boys, the wild-eyed youngest, turned to her, his innocent curiosity illuminating his expression. "You seem sad, mother." "Why?" The word mother struck deep within her, a balm that brought both comfort and guilt. She knelt, brushing her fingers through his tousled hair. I'm worried about the future, my sweet boy. Her heart tightened. She had to shield them from the chaos. Don't worry. The older one chimed in, confidence radiating from him. We'll always be together. Nothing can break us apart. They both grinned, and despite the trembling storm inside her, her lips curved into a smile. But that sense of safety was fleeting. The shadows lengthened. The shadows and the whispers merging into a single, dark entity that slinked around the corners of her heart. More whispers, more darting glances filled her mind with uncertainty. As she gathered herself, she noticed Lady Marin, a courtier with a reputation for being intolerably inquisitive, lurking nearby. The woman's keen eyes sparkled with suspicion. Fredegund felt a chill run down her spine. Beware! That icy whisper seemed to echo in her ears, digging into her thoughts. That probing gaze promised instability. Would Lady Marin be the one to spill the beans? All it would take was a seed of doubt planted in the right ear. A sudden crash shattered her thoughts. The castle gates banged open as a messenger rushed through, breathless and wild-eyed. Your Majesty! There's news. Something terrible has happened. Her chest clenched, dread tangled with her curiosity. What could be worse than betrayal of her heart? Fredegund stood, heart pounding furiously in her ears, caught in a whirlwind of emotions. She met the eyes of her stepsons, both confused and concerned. What is it? She managed, steeling herself for the answer that could change everything. But before the messenger spoke, Fredegund saw something flash behind his eyes, half-formed secrets, desperate and trembling on the cusp of revelation. Was her world about to crack apart? And then it hit her: could this news be the very scandal that would unveil her heart's darkest desires or shatter it into a million pieces? The air in the castle felt drier now, the tension building, tightening around them all like a noose. What would the messenger reveal? And more importantly, would it force her to choose between her heart and her throne? Fredegund held her breath as the messenger took a moment to gather himself, glancing nervously from her to the boys. The flickering candlelight cast long, wavering shadows that danced ominously against the stone walls. Dread pooled in Fredegund's stomach, growing heavier with each passing second. Speak! She demanded, her voice steadier than she felt, but desperation clawed at her throat. What has happened? The messenger braced himself, his eyes wide with panic. Your Majesty, an attack, the border towns. Rebels have risen against the crown. They're calling for justice, and they claim. His voice wavered, and Fredegund stepped closer, her heart racing as he continued. They claim that the Queen favors her stepsons over the people. The rumors are spreading. They're looking for a voice to rally behind. Cold realization washed over her like a tide, making her weak in the knees. The whispers had begun. She thought of Lady Marin's piercing gaze, lurking like a predator. How could she explain these feelings? How could she shield her boys from the venomous tongue of gossip? The weight of her own desires felt like chains tightening around her heart, a cruel mockery of her maternal instincts. No. She breathed, the word barely escaping her lips as despair threatened to drown her. They cannot rise against us for something so false. The messenger shook his head, fear etched into every line of his face. It has already started, Your Majesty. The towns close to the borders are rallying. They believe the Queen's affection has turned the royal family weak. They seek a new leader, one who will stand for them, not a queen who stirs scandal. Fredegund spun on her heel, her mind racing. The laughter of her stepsons faded into a memory as a new storm brewed within her. She grasped the edge of the wooden table, steadying herself. We cannot let this escalate, she declared fiercely, determination igniting within her. Gather the men. We must focus on quelling the unrest before it takes root. But what will the nobles think? The youngest boy timidly asked, his innocent voice piercing through the tumult of her thoughts. Will they believe us? Fredegund knelt, her heart twisting as she looked into his eyes. We will make them believe. I will protect you both, no matter the cost. But deep down, she wondered how she could forge this lie without it eating her alive from the inside. The older boy's face tightened with worry. Will you go to battle, mother? His voice trembled, and Fredegund felt the walls of her world closing in. No, she said firmly, though doubt gnawed at her. It wasn't just the fight against rebels she feared. It was the battle within herself, the secrets that could unravel her family. I will not let them draw blood. We will show strength, not violence. Together, we can silence the rumors. But as she spoke, a thought nagged at her. What if her efforts were futile? What if the ghosts of her past desires twisted her future into a dark web of shame and betrayal? Then you must be careful, the messenger warned, a hint of urgency in his voice. They will feast on your weaknesses. Your heart cannot betray you now. As the messenger turned to leave, Fredegund felt his words sink like stones in her stomach. What would the court think when they discovered the truth? Would they brand her a heretic, or worse, a traitor to her own blood? Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the hall, breaking her reverie. A figure emerged from the shadows, a soldier, bloodied and breathless, eyes wild with panic. Your Majesty, urgent news from the outer gates. Fredegund's heart dropped, fear slicing through her. She could already sense the air being charged with impending doom. What was happening? Was this rebellion about to engulf her family whole? Quickly! What is it? She urged. But as the soldier hesitated, Fredegund could see the truth swirling ominously in his eyes. She realized ahead of them lay choices more perilous than she could imagine. What revelation would shatter her world next? The soldier took a deep breath, his chest heaving as he tried to steady himself. Your Majesty, the rebels, they've reached the outer gates. They are gathering forces, and they're demanding you come forth. They want you to answer for your favoritism. They say you've betrayed the people. The words struck Fredegund like an iron hammer against glass. Her heart raced, a wild drum in her chest, as panic washed over her. What do you mean? They want me? She whispered, almost to herself. Yes, my queen. They believe if they make a show of power, they can force you to choose between your family and your loyalty to the crown. In that moment, the room felt too small, the air too thick. It pressed against her lungs, suffocating. All she could think of were her boys. The images of them innocent, trusting, unaware of the shadows creeping ever closer twisted the knife deeper into her gut. Gather the council, she managed to say. Tell them we must prepare our defenses. We will not yield to threats. Your Majesty, they may not listen, the soldier warned, his voice tremulous. This isn't just discontent, it's a full-on uprising. He took a step closer, his eyes dark with urgency. You must think of the boys. If the court sees your allegiance in question, if they doubt your strength. Fredegund cut him off, her resolve hardening. Doubt? They will see strength, I promise you that. They will see a queen who will protect her family and her kingdom. But deep down, the gnawing fear clawed at her. How could she face the nobles, let alone the rebels who stood ready to tear her crown from her head? Each heartbeat felt like a countdown, the ticking of an unseen clock echoing the threats against her. With a gesture, she commanded the soldiers to bring her a weapon. She needed to feel the weight of something solid in her hands. A sword. Something to remind her that she was not just a queen, she was a mother, fierce and unyielding. Her boys needed her strength. Yet, with every passing moment, doubt encircled her mind like a vice. The whispers of her past, the shadows of desire, the fear of betrayal, they all began to collide, shattering her precariously balanced world. Stay by my side, she ordered, pulling her sons closer as they stepped into the adjoining chamber where the council was already assembling. Their faces were a mix of worry and trepidation, the anxiety sharp and tangible. The tension in the air thickened, as if wrapped in a shroud of darkness. Fredegund took a deep breath, pushing for calm. Listen well, she addressed them, her voice taking on a powerful timbre. We may face traitors at our gates, but we shall stand united. No power can break us if we do not let it. Now gather the guards. We will show them we are not to be trifled with. The men nodded, some glancing at one another with uncertainty. It won't be easy, she could feel it. The odds were shifting like sand beneath their feet. Your Majesty, one of the councillors interjected, we advise a retreat to the castle. Keep the boys safe. We can negotiate from a position of strength. Strength? She spat, anger flaring within her. You think I can cower behind walls while they desecrate my name? No! In those moments, her voice rang through the hall, fighting the doubt, the fear, the guilt. But after every proclamation, her heart longed for a flicker of support, a sign that her family could weather this storm. Just then, a distant, low rumble echoed in the air, the sound of war drums, beating for a reckoning. Fredegund's heart sank, realizing that soon, she wouldn't just have to confront her enemies but the truths of her heart that threatened to undo her. In her silence, a single thought emerged with relentless clarity. This battle would not only determine the fate of her kingdom, but also the very essence of who she was, a queen desperate to protect her family and her legacy, even against the ghosts of her past. But could she stand strong when the looming shadows of betrayal hovered closer? As the drumbeats grew louder, Fredegund glanced at her boys, and something deep within whispered that this might only be the beginning of her darkest challenges yet. Would she emerge triumphant? Or would she embrace the depths of her hidden desires and unravel along with everything she held dear? As the war drums thundered, Fredegund felt the weight of the world pressing down on her shoulders. The air crackled with tension, alive with the promises of violence. Her heart raced, and with every beat, a plan took shape in her mind, fighting against the shadows that threatened to overtake her. Your Majesty, a voice emerged from the crowd, shaking her from her thoughts. It was Lord Vespasian, his brow furrowed. The people are restless. They will not listen to reason unless they see you taking action. Display your strength. Show them you are the leader they need. She wanted to scream. Show strength? Didn't he understand? This wasn't just a matter of leadership. It was her family's safety that hung in the balance. The faces of her boys danced across her mind, their sweet laughter echoing, reminding her of all that was at stake. Are we to fight our own people? She asked, her voice low and deadly calm. Are their grievances not valid? Do you think I can send men to kill those who raised our banners and fought for our land? The council shifted uncomfortably, murmurs rippling through the gathered nobles. Fredegund's gaze hardened. She could not appear weak. If they sensed even a flicker of doubt, they would claw at her like wolves. Suddenly, a loud crash jolted her attention. The door slammed open, revealing a ragged soldier, bloodied and wild-eyed. Your Majesty! The rebels have breached the outer defenses. They come for you! Panic spread through the council like wildfire, faces turning pale, fear evident in every furrowed brow. But that fear ignited something in Fredegund, a fire that had been stifled too long. No more. Gather the guards, she shouted. I will not hide. I will meet them head on. Prepare the soldiers. We fight for our home. The warriors shifted into action as if her command had awoken the very spirit of the kingdom. The drums continued their relentless beat, each thump resonating like a war cry in her veins. Your Majesty, please. Vespasian pleaded, the desperation evident. You cannot face them alone. They seek your life. His words barely registered. Her mind was so focused on the resolve blossoming within her. I will face them, she insisted, her voice steady. But not as a victim. I will stand for my family and my people. I will not let them tear apart what I have built. As she turned to march toward the gates, her sons stayed at her side, their eyes wide and fearful. She knelt to their level, forcing a smile as the chaos swirled around them. Stay close, she said, her voice a gentle whisper, yet tinged with steel. I will keep you safe. Trust me. No harm will come to you while I breathe. But in that moment, the door to her heart cracked. Trepidation lingered, battling against her fierce determination. The weight of the decision she had made, her forbidden desires, her choices rattled through her mind like a persistent drumroll of guilt. The gates groaned and creaked, pushed open by a mass of voices shouting her name, each one rising to a fever pitch. Fredegund! Fredegund! The rebels' calls rang in her ears, a cacophony of fury and betrayal. In the midst of it all, doubt gnawed at her insides. The ones who roared with indignation, did they know about the secrets she kept? About the longing for a life less constrained, a happiness beyond duty? Did they understand that within her heart lay the terrors of both rebellion and guilt? Stepping forward, the sun set behind her, casting an ethereal glow that momentarily shielded her from the world's chaos. As the first faces of the rebels emerged from the shadows, she felt an urge to retreat, to protect her cherished boys from the storm brewing before them. But just as she steadied her breath, an unexpected figure pushed through the crowd, their leader, clad in dark leather, and with piercing green eyes that locked onto hers with haunting familiarity. A boy she had once cherished. A boy who now stood at the forefront of her greatest fears. "Mother," he said, his voice a blend of anger and sorrow. "You must answer for your sins." Fredegund's heart stopped. The tangible tension of the moment chilled her to the bone. How had it come to this? What would this rebellion reveal, and could she keep her family safe while confronting the sins of her heart? As the crowd surged forward, a roaring tide of emotions, Fredegund felt an unshakable connection to the boy standing before her. This was not just a fight for power, it was a battle for love, loyalty, and the very essence of who they were. He stood there, her child cloaked in shadows of betrayal. Fredegund's heart hammered in her chest like a trapped bird. She glanced at her boys, their wide, innocent eyes pleading for reassurance. She wanted to scream, to pull them close and shield them from this unfolding nightmare, but duty held her tight. "Joran," she called, forcing strength into her voice. "What have you done? Why lead these people against me?" The crowd, wild and restless, surged forward as his name hung in the air. A collective murmur rippled through the assembled rebels. They hungered for answers, and in their hunger, Fredegund felt something stir deep within her, a primal instinct to protect what mattered most. "No," Joran replied, eyes flashing. "This is about them, about the truth. I cannot let you hide behind lies any longer. You have taken from us, from everyone who believed in you." "Taken?" she echoed, a sense of desperation creeping into her tone. She took a step closer, determined to break through the wall he had built. "I have protected you. I have fought for our land and our people. My decisions, your decisions." Joran spat, and Fredegund flinched. "Your decisions have chained us. You're a queen in a castle built on the suffering of our own. They deserve better." The forces of anger and desperation swirled around her, a tempest threatening to engulf everything she held dear. Fredegund's mind raced. The boy she knew, the boy who had clung to her side, had grown into a man demanding justice. What justice? Would the truth really free them, or would it only deepen the wounds she had fought to conceal? Around her, the council shifted uneasily, Lord Vespasian's eyes wide in disbelief. The rebels, their faces lined with fury, moved closer as if they could taste the blood of history stirring in the air. Shadows danced on the dusty ground beneath the setting sun, undulating like the emotions roaring within her. "Joran," she implored, her voice barely above a whisper. "I raised you, I nourished you with hope. Can't you see? This isn't the answer." He shook his head, and in that moment, everything shattered. The weight of love, remorse, and fury pressed against her chest, and as she looked deeper into his eyes, she saw not a boy but a mirror reflecting her darkest fears. "I will not allow you to destroy us," he declared, a quiet rage coiling tightly around his words. As her vision blurred with unshed tears, the ground began to tremble under the weight of revelation. The air thickened with fear and anticipation. "Step back, Joran," Fredegund commanded, with thinly veiled authority. A moment that felt frozen in time hung in the air. "If you come for me, if you choose this path, then you will face the consequences." But as she spoke, doubt wormed through her resolve. The consequences for whom? For him? For her sons? For the crown they all barely clung to? In the restless crowd, faces turned grim, eyes blazing with misplaced loyalty and unfulfilled desires. Unrest was no longer just a whisper, it was a tide. As Joran stood defiantly before her, she recognized that love could twist into something cruel, and all too quickly. Fredegund's breaths came faster now, the stakes climbing higher with each passing second. It was no longer just about a kingdom, it was about choices. About loyalty. The fragile threads of family and power were fraying, each pull a reminder that rebellion loomed not just at the gates, but within the very confines of her soul. From the depths of the crowd, an icy voice rang out, slicing through the tension like a dagger. Your Majesty! Will you face the judgment of your own blood today? Eyes turned to her, the weight of expectation resting heavily on her shoulders. She was the queen, yes, but within her was a woman, a mother adrift, battling storms of guilt and loyalty. Did she dare confront the darkest corners of her past? And if she did, what price would she pay? As the sun dipped lower, the horizon consumed by an ominous twilight, Fredegund readied herself to speak. Her voice trembled on the brink of revelation, yet in her heart, a tempest brewed. Who will be my champion? She finally whispered, and the crowd fell silent, every breath held in anticipation, an electric charge signaling the end of one era and the possible birth of another. In that charged moment, she knew the truth: the battle had just begun, and the next move was hers to make. The silence hung like a thick fog, each heartbeat amplifying the tension in the air. Fredegund held her breath, her chest tightening as she searched the crowd for a sign, a flicker of courage. It was then, amidst the gathered souls, that a figure stepped forward, a man with a face she recognized, though time had etched its cruelty upon him. Your Majesty, he said, his voice steady but low, I will be your champion. It was Kellen, a knight once loyal to the crown, and now standing with the rebels. His declaration shocked the crowd into a collective gasp. Fredegund's heart raced, hope and dread coiling together in the pit of her stomach. Why would you do this to me? She ran her hand over her forehead, feeling the weight of desperation close in again. You've served me faithfully. I have served the truth, Kellen replied, his gaze unwavering. The intensity in his eyes felt like a spark in the gathering storm. And if you will not confront your past, I will fight for it. For those you've overlooked. Fredegund's blood turned cold. Memories of whispered secrets and stolen glances flooded her mind. Kellen had been so much more than a knight. He had been a solace, a dangerous lure in a world that sought order and duty. And here he was now, complicit in Joran's rebellion, unwilling to protect her from the very truth she had buried. Is this what legacy looks like? Fredegund's voice quivered, faltering under the barrage of memories she had tried to forget. Does it involve you disbanding the very family we built? A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some echoed her sentiments, others vilified her, feeling the tug of Joran's message resonate with their plight. The tension thickened as every eye turned from her to Kellen, then back again. This is about more than family, Joran shouted, pointing accusingly at Fredegund. You need to stop hiding behind your crown. Enough! Fredegund's command sliced through the air with a conviction that startled even her. She had become more queen than mother, and the transformation felt like a gaping wound inside. Do you dare question my decisions before my own children? The energy in the crowd shifted, a mixture of apprehension and understanding hung heavily around them. Your decisions have led us here, Joran countered, fire igniting his voice. A kingdom built on secrets will only fall when the truth is revealed. Fredegund looked at her son, the boy she had nurtured, now a man driving a dagger deep into her heart. Was she willing to risk everything, to expose the very sins that had shaped their reality? The countenance of the crowd twisted from resentment to anticipation, and she felt the weight of their collective anger solidifying into resolve. No more, Kellen broke the silence, stepping closer to the front. Either you confront your past today, Fredegund, or I will expose it. Fredegund's heart went still. The expression of the crowd morphed into something resolute, something hungry for the truth. They were waiting, alive with expectation, and she realized she was trapped. Reveal herself and lose her kingdom? Or remain silent and be crushed under their united front? Very well, she said slowly, every word heavy as she steadied herself. If I must speak today, so be it. As the realization dawned on her, a shudder coursed through her. She was opening the door to her past, baring her soul before everyone, not just for herself, but for her children. The crowd leaned in, breaths held tight. What would come from her lips could either restore her family or shatter it into jagged pieces. As she opened her mouth, the truth teetering on the edge of her tongue, a sudden, thunderous crash echoed in the distance. An urgent messenger galloped towards them, face pale with panic, as though he carried the weight of an impending doom. "Your Majesty! The enemy is advancing fast!" The crowd erupted into chaos at the news. Fredegund's heart seized as reality seeped through the cracks of her troubled mind. The battle was not only for her family's future, but for survival. With a glance to her boys innocent, unaware of the horror slipping nearer, she knew their fate hung perilously in the balance. She had to act, but could she navigate this storm without losing herself? "Ready the guards!" She shouted over the rising turmoil, urgency pumping through her veins. "We will not fall in fear. We will fight together." And just as the people began to rally around her call to arms, she could feel the cold steel of betrayal settle quietly in the recesses of her heart. War was upon them, but the true battle of trust was far from over. As the first clash of steel echoed in the distance, Fredegund caught a glimpse of Joran's determined gaze one last time, a chilling reminder of the revolt brewing behind her battened doors. The real fight was only just beginning. The air crackled with urgency as Fredegund scanned the crowd, her heart thrumming with fear and determination. Shouts rang out, mingling with the clatter of armor being hastily strapped on. The enemies were coming, but her kingdom was already fractured from within. "Form ranks! We need to protect the palace!" she cried, trying to rally the scattered members of her guard. Each face she met was a mix of confusion and worry, loyalty battling against the unsettling whispers of rebellion. They were supposed to stand firm, but with Kellen's betrayal casting a long shadow over her command, how could she trust them? Kellen, arms crossed defiantly, lingered at the edge of the assembled soldiers. His presence felt like a storm brewing on the horizon, an unyielding reminder of her unresolved past. She swallowed hard, the taste of betrayal bitter on her tongue. He had been her rock, but now he was one of them, one of those who stood against her. "Mother!" Joran shouted, his voice cutting through the tumult. He stepped forward, his youthful face strained with determination. "We must ally with Kellen. If there is any hope against the enemy, we need all the fighters we can gather." "No!" she snapped, her emotions surging like a wild river. "You don't understand." Kellen, as the weight of her voice faltered, and she cursed herself for almost revealing the truth. Secrets had bound them tighter than blood, but the binding was fraying. "Please, listen to your son." Kellen's voice, a blend of hope and defiance, broke in. "A divided heart will be the downfall of this kingdom. We can regain our strength, but only if you confront what has long been hidden. You need us, as much as we need you." "No!" she urged, though her resolve crumbled under the weight of his plea. "I will not drag the skeletons of our past back into this mess." She wanted to appear strong, but the edges of her voice cracked. Betrayal had its price. Behind them, the dull thump of war drums echoed ominously, pushing the air thick with dread and anticipation. Fredegund grit her teeth, wrestling with her instincts. Would exposing her truth really unite them, or would it tear them apart more? "Ladies and gentlemen of the court," Joran stepped up to the front line of soldiers, his voice unwavering. "This is our moment to decide. Will we allow our queen's shame to bind us, or will we march forward, united in our fight for freedom?" The crowd roared, voices rising in support, and Fredegund's stomach plummeted. The loyalty that once bound them was unspooling before her eyes, threatening to unravel everything. Would her family, her legacy, be drowned in these moments? Determined to regain some control, she said forcefully, "We face a common enemy today, and we shall fight as one. But know that if this battle is to be won, we must do it without lies." Her heart raced, conviction surging through her blood. A part of her longed to clarify every twisted detail of her life, to let them know why Kellen had been so much more than just a knight. The ground trembled beneath them, the distant clash of steel growing louder. Time was running out. She weighed her choices agonizingly. Each second was a step closer to war, yet each breath felt like a whisper of truth begging to escape. Suddenly, the gate creaked open, and out rode a figure cloaked in midnight shadows, a familiar but unexpected shape. Fredegund squinted against the chaos. It was Eric, her youngest son, mounting his horse despite his inexperience. He was just a boy, yet he surged forward, his youthful spirit unyielding and desperate. "Mother!" he cried, innocence shining through the haze of impending violence. "I will fight for you. For our family." "No!" she screamed, panic flooding her senses. "Get back!" But it was too late. He was already in motion, darting headlong into the fray. Fredegund's heart shattered for the second time that day, a deep agony spilling through her veins. As the battle began, she found herself torn between her family torn apart by conflict and the truth that could unravel the very fabric of their bond, would revealing the depth of her sins. Endanger Joran, Eric, and the kingdom still clinging to the hope of a united future, with chaos rising around her, Fredegund stood on the thin line of past and present, her choices no longer hers to make. What remained to lose when all that was left was the echo of her own heartbeat pounding against the inevitable clash of fate, and as the first swords clashed and the yells of the angry crowd grew, Fredegund realized with a bone-chilling certainty that the worst was yet to come. The cacophony engulfing the battlefield became a living entity, a roaring beast hungry for blood. Swords clanged against shields, men shouted in a frenzy, and the familiar scent of sweat and fear mingled in the air. Fredegund's heart raced, matched only by the pounding of her soldiers' boots against the ground, steady yet frantic in their response to the chaos. "Secure the left flank!" she ordered, her voice rising above the clamor. Faces turned toward her, a mix of fear and longing for leadership that she felt slipping from her grasp. Eric was out there. Every fiber of her being clawed at the reality that her youngest son had thrown himself into the chaos without fully understanding the consequences. "Where's Kellen?" she thought desperately, scanning the lines of men clashing in front of her. They needed him. Even with the shadows of betrayal looming, she had to trust that he could keep her children safe alongside the soldiers. Suddenly, a flash of metal caught her eye. It was Joran, wielding his sword but faltering as a massive adversary bore down on him. Panic surged through her. "Joran!" She lunged forward, ready to force her way through the tide of fighters, her instincts kicking in full throttle. Each beat of her heart drummed a warning of despair and courage intertwining, and then Kellen emerged, his presence like a storm cloud become flesh. He stormed through the fray, fury igniting his every movement. With a fierce swing of his blade, he dispatched the menacing figure threatening her son. Joran stumbled backward, clearly shaken but unharmed. "What was that for?" Joran gasped, sweeping a glance at Fredegund before locking on to Kellen's eyes. "You could have left me." "Kellen was here to protect you," Fredegund interjected, her voice strained and sharp. "Whether you want to accept it or not, we fight together or we all perish apart." Their eyes betrayed the internal battle raging within them, but in this moment, survival demanded unity. Kellen inhaled deeply, the weight of old wounds still fresh in the air. "Strength comes from sharing burdens," he said, glancing at Fredegund, then back to Joran. But it was too late for whispered alliances and brave words. Fredegund felt a shift, a chilling ripple of darkness cutting through her troops. An eerie silence fell, like a fog rolling in, blanketing the tumult of war. Shadows danced across the ground, and in the distance, she spotted something sinister, a group of cloaked figures moving steadily toward the chaos like wraiths, each step heavy with purpose. "What are they?" she whispered, dread clawing at her throat. The enemy had unleashed more than just swords. They had sent phantoms into the fray. A cry erupted from the ranks, a warning mingled with terror, rippling through the soldiers. The figures closed in, ethereal and fearsome, flames licking around their bodies yet failing to consume them. Fredegund's breath hitched. A mere illusion? Or was there magic truly at play? Then, as if conjured by the thoughts echoing in her mind, one of the cloaked figures stepped forward, unveiling a pale visage framed by shadows. It was Farron. The sorceress Fredegund's former ally turned deadly foe. Bowed to the unavoidable truth, Farron's voice rose, haunting and echoing over the battlefield like a ghostly hymn. "You cannot outrun your past, Fredegund. It will haunt you to the very end. Each word struck Fredegund like a whip. What did Farron know? The secrets she had buried, the lies interwoven in her reign, how had they come to light? Caught in her spiraling thoughts of panic and betrayal, she felt Joran's hand clutch her arm. Mother, we can't let fear blind us now. We have to fight. But even as she nodded, dread pulled in her stomach. The truth was a double-edged sword. They would never win this battle against enemies undermined by betrayal within, and perhaps a deeper betrayal still lay buried, ready to emerge. A shiver raced down her spine as Fredegund looked toward the encroaching darkness. Eric was still lost in the fray, Kellen's intentions questioned, Joran's bravery untested, every single bond itched with uncertainty. As fury ignited in her veins, she drew her sword, ready to make a choice. Would she confront her past now, before it consumed them all, or would she fight against Farron while holding the shards of yesterday close? The air thickened with tension, and the ground seemed to tremble beneath her feet as the harbingers of chaos closed. And would she find strength in unity? Or would darkness pull her back into secrets she had fought so hard to escape? The battlefield raged like a lion awakened, fierce and unrelenting. Fredegund stood with her heart pounding, adrenaline coursing through her veins as she faced the mounting chaos. The clash of swords rang like thunder, each strike echoing the turmoil brewing between her family and foes. Kellen stood by her side, sword raised, shifting seamlessly through the ranks of attackers. There he was, once a cherished knight, now a soldier caught in the deadly pull of loyalty and truth. Her sons went to battle, their youthful spirits igniting a flicker of hope in her heart, yet the weight of betrayal pulled her down like a stone. Mother, we can do this! Joran shouted, sweat glistening on his brow as he sidestepped a rebel, the fire of resolve igniting in his eyes. Fredegund felt something swell within her, a mix of pride and bone-deep fear. Her gaze wavered between her son and Kellen, memories flaring in her mind like wildfires catching the dry brush. Farron, the sorceress, stood defiantly before them now, malice dripping from her voice, weaving around them like a serpent. Your fears have come to fruition, Fredegund. You can't escape what you have hidden. Dread slithered down Fredegund's spine. Farron would expose her, tearing through the carefully woven fabric of lies. But no, not today. Enough! Fredegund cried, gripping her sword, letting adrenaline fuel her spirit. Today, we end this deceit. She stepped forward, sheer determination radiating from her. What do you want, Farron? She refused to give in. The shadows thickened around her, their whispers growing louder, intertwining with her fears, threatening to choke her will. Farron laughed, a sound that cut through the battlefield like ice. Your past will claim you, Queen. You cannot protect them while you wear the mask of lies. Fredegund nodded, the weight of that truth crushing, but she wouldn't cower. She had come too far. Around her, the soldiers fought, legs pounding against the earth, swords clanging like furious bells. Shouts of fear lined the air, mingling with the cries of warriors clashing on both sides. In its midst, Eric darted, a blur of bravery despite the looming shadows around him. Eric! Fredegund yelled, fear gripping her tighter than any chain. Get back! But her youngest son charged forward, fierce determination sparkling in his eyes, a heart filled with innocence that would not dim. Don't worry, Mother. I'm protecting you. Came his defiant shout, echoing through the storm of battle. Her breath caught. The weight of his trust twisted painfully in her chest. How could she protect him when the very truth of their lives threatened to destroy them all? Shield him, she commanded, turning to Kellen in a frantic plea. He met her gaze, resolve igniting in his blue eyes that mirrored the storm swirling within her. Together, we can't let them take what is ours, he shouted, charging forward, sword raised high. Fredegund felt the fire of his words ignite a wild courage. Farron! Fredegund shouted once more, heart racing. If you want to fight, then face me. It was a challenge, a desperate measure fueled by sheer will. As they clashed, the world faded away, a whirlwind of chaos reduced to the two of them. Each strike from Farron sent a shudder through Fredegund, a reflection of their intertwined fates. You can't hide from this truth, Farron hissed, dodging another blow. I wouldn't he give you the power to unravel me? Fredegund exclaimed, gathering strength. I am a queen, a mother! And I will fight for my family, for the legacy we will create together. Secrets do not control me. With that roar, she swung, catching Farron off guard. A scream broke through the cacophony. It sent a chill down Fredegund's spine. Eric had fallen. No! She screamed, anguish tightening her chest. Heart racing, she turned, rushing toward her son through the chaos, each step heavier than the last. Eric! She reached him, cradling his fallen form, blood pooling beneath his shirt. Please! He opened his eyes, filled with pain yet illuminated by defiance. I'm okay, Mother, just stay strong, he whispered, and Fredegund felt as if her world was collapsing. She couldn't lose him, she couldn't lose any of them. With renewed purpose, Fredegund rose, bearing the weight of her family's futures, the truth clawing at her throat. Stay behind me, she commanded, guiding Eric with fierce determination. The wind screamed, and she realized she had to expose everything to protect those she loved. Turning back to Farron, heart beating louder than the drums of war, she spoke with clarity that cut through the chaos. Yes, I've made mistakes, but I will not let them define me. The air thickened, silence falling abruptly. My past is sharp and jagged, yet I choose to embrace it. I will fight for my family until my last breath. Each word roared with conviction, sending shockwaves through the crowd. The rebels paused, the tension shifting palpably as uncertainty rippled through those gathered. Fredegund met Joran's fierce gaze, his spirit unbroken amidst the turmoil. We are not just blood, but a fiery bond unyielding. Farron staggered back, disbelief crossing her face. Kellen shouted, together. We stand united. The rebels felt the power of solidarity ignite around them, whispers transformed into a rallying cry. In that very moment, the lines blurred, and Fredegund found strength, surrounded by her boys, her family. Now let them hear us, she proclaimed, her voice rising with warmth, filled with determination and healing. And just like that, Fredegund embraced not only the fight for her land but the boundless love for her family. The darkness began to retreat slightly, just enough for a flicker of hope woven into their hearts, enough for her to see that they would rise together, against any foe. Charge! Fredegund screamed, sweeping her sword high, breaking the chains of betrayal, forging into a united front. Warriors answered her call, stepping forward, ready to fight for love, loyalty, and the light that defied the gathering storm. In that instant, everything shifted, a battle for redemption, laughter amidst chaos, family against the shadows. The fight had only just begun, but together, for the first time, Fredegund felt the tides turn. The air buzzed with an electric promise as their hearts beat in unison. This is who they are, unshakable, fierce, and always fighting for love. And in the heat of the battle against shadows, Fredegund felt a warmth spread within, an understanding that truth, no matter how jagged, was what would ultimately set them free. Fight for what you hold dear. Fredegund and her family surged forward, cutting through chaos into a brighter future together. Now, let us be real. This is not just the end, but a journey we've traveled together. Don't even think about leaving without hitting that subscribe button. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next chapter in our adventure. Trust me, you'll want to see it, and smash that like button now to feed this algorithm, because it really makes a difference. I want to hear from all of you. Flood the comments with your reactions. What did you think about this ending? Do you think Fredegund can truly find peace after everything? And don't wait even one more second to share this story with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us keep growing our community and embracing the power of storytelling together.